Hey, girlfriends, welcome to the Girl Talk podcast. We are here with part 2 on adoption with Nikki and Jamie. We've heard so much good information from Nikki about her personal experience with adopting out of the foster system. If you missed it, go back to the episode right before this and listen to it. And then we're jumping in today with Jamie and her experience with her adoption. So Jamie, I'm going to let you just take it over.
Okay. Well, mine is very different than Nikki's. And everybody's adoption story will be different because there's so many different elements that can go into it. But we started an adoption internationally first in Romania, and we were given a son, and we had paid $30,000 to bring him home. And a moratorium went into place, which means no more adoptions out of that country because they wanted to become part of the European Union. And for them to be able to do that, they had to stop all international adoptions. But we had already been placed with a boy. Nikolai Volakan was his name.
How long did that process take?
Well, so we started it, and then we got stuck. And so from beginning to end, it was 5 years.
Wow.
And we had to keep redoing our home studies and our fingerprints and all these things. And so 5 years from 2000 to 2005, and we were still being promised that we would get him. I went to work in 2005. And I was a nurse at the time. I walked into recovery and had befriended a lab tech that was homeless at the time. And when I went to go sit down to finish my charting, she approached me and said, "Hey, would your family consider adopting my daughter's unborn child?"
Wow.
And I said, "What?" And was totally, shocked that this was happening. And so I went home, told the family, and was thinking about all the other families that I could call that might want to say yes. And then God said, "But she asked you." And we knew that that doesn't happen every day, that you go to work and somebody offers you a baby. There were 2 families at the time she was trying to pick from, the birth mom, that is. And I met her at Panera in Maryville and just shared our family story. And then on my birthday that year, December 8th, the doorbell rang. And I had a file about this thick that was delivered from Romania. Wow. And on top it was stamped, denied. And we were basically told that Nikolai wouldn't come home. And so I sat down in the chair and grieved the death of my son. Wow. And I know that sounds crazy, but we had met him 3 times and had a room prepared for him and all of that. And so I'm sitting in the chair crying, and all of a sudden my phone went off, and I could see out of the corner of my eye that it was the birth mother calling me. And I thought, well, I don't want to answer that right now. But I did, and I said hello. And she said, "I made my decision, and I picked your family, and I'm ready to sign the papers." Wow. All on the same day, on my birthday.
Wow.
And so for me, I had to work through, God, why didn't you do that one? And why do I have to grieve that one? And then you're giving me this one. And it was really a lesson about God's sovereignty. And he has the right. And what I learned was obedience is more important than outcome. And to trust him with a failure. Wow. And because in the failure, right, so to speak, was where I learned the most. It's not in the victories.
Yes, so true.
It's so true. But it was a heartbreaking, crazy process. And so this birth mom was local, and I got to be in the room.
Wow.
We got the phone call that she went into labor early in January of 2006, so 8 weeks later. And I got to be in the room, see my daughter Ava be born.
Wow.
and cut the cord and be part of that whole birthing process. And then I went home and I was like, this is weird, because she felt like mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But I was leaving her with another woman. And the next day I had a gift for the birth mom, and I was going to go up and spend some time with the family. And I walked into the room with my gift, and the birth mom said something to me, and she said, I want you to leave. I've changed my mind. And I still emotional about it, right?
Yes, yes.
Even though she's mine today. And the same thing you were talking about, the Holy Spirit just fell on me and grace. And I just walked over and I put the gift down on her table. And I said, listen, there is no way I want a baby that I'm not supposed to have.
Wow.
And if this baby is yours to keep, then I want to support you. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to give you time. And I left. And she was shocked that I just left.
Wow.
And so it was really God used that moment to show a woman that another woman remained so calm. And then she called me later that day and said, well, don't you want to come back and spend time with her? And I said, no, I already know that I love her and she feels like mine, but I think you need to spend the night with her and decide what God has for you. And the next day she called in the morning. I didn't know if she was going to follow through. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I fell asleep. Well, I ate a whole bag of Doritos. I did. I got in my pajamas.
What flavor were they?
Nacho.
Okay.
And
we've all been there.
Yes. Went to bed. And the next morning, I didn't know if she would call. And she called. And she said, listen, it's really cold this morning, so don't forget her shoes and her sweater. And she listed all the things she didn't want me to forget.
Wow.
And that's how she told me to come.
Wow.
And then we waited in the parking lot until she got the courage to sign the papers. And when she did, right, this is a mom.
Yes.
The Lord just again fell on me, and he said, you will have her the rest of your life, and this is her last day with her. And I want you to treat her like what she is, her mom.
Wow.
And so I walked into the room, and they were going to separate us for pictures, separate us so I could get in the wheelchair and carry her down. And I walked over and I hugged her birth mom and said, I want you to travel with me. And we both wept.
Wow.
And so she got to come with for the photos. And then when we were leaving the hospital to go, the nurses didn't know what to do with us. Like, it was all so awkward. And the one nurse looked at me and said, well, who's going to sit in the wheelchair to take her down? And I said, her birth mom. And she got to carry her out and put her in the car seat.
Wow.
And God allowed me to see something. He allowed me to see a woman trembling, her whole entire body trembling, putting her child in a seat. And I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. And it allowed me to continue to remember what she gave up and what I gained.
Wow.
And through that, what God allowed me to do in that moment and see, it allowed me to keep her in Ava's life, because I didn't want her to have to live the rest of her life without her.
Wow.
And they now have an amazing relationship. We all do. She and the birth mom has come to know Christ. She has 3 more children. She lives out of state now. Her and Ava talk. She's made trips here to Indiana to see us.
That's awesome.
Yes, it is
So awesome.
restoration and healing.
Mm-hmm.
And like someday when Ava gets married, there will be two women sitting there, side by side, loving her. Mm-hmm.
I think that's beautiful, and it reminds me, Jamie, when I first met you and you said, oh, I have to tell you my God story. This is all God.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing that story and how beautiful it is, but only God.
God.
Only God through that whole story. That's incredible.
Only God.
And I would say the same for you, Nikki. I mean,
yes.
There was God's direction over which child am I picking on this. And then when it comes down to which sister, just clinging to God for his clear direction. And then how do you bring that child into your family? Nikki, was that an adjustment for the family? How did you guys handle that?
Yeah, so looking on the outside in, when you see a family adopt, my visualization was just all rainbows and roses and unicorns. I was like, that is the coolest thing anybody could ever do is adopt a kid in my mind.
Yeah.
I just always looked at it as, wow, like they are awesome. I just thought that. And then when you do it, what did I learn? It's not awesome. No, it is awesome. It is awesome.
It's hard.
But it's messy and you don't see that. But it's all amazing at the same time. Yes. And it is beautiful at the same time. But you do not see behind the closed doors the emotion of it and bringing in a child into your home and your biological kids having to readjust. And then you don't realize, you're not realizing at the time, I didn't, the side of that kid is getting pulled away from their biological family. Like it's like a death for them. And our personal situation, without telling everything, our daughter was still having visits with her biological mom while she was living with us because the state is so messy, they allow the child to still visit the mom until your adoption is final.
Wow.
Sometimes. And this was one of those sometimes. And she would go to her mom for 2 weeks and then come back to our house, and she'd go visit her mom once every 2 weeks. It was a supervised visit, and then come back home. And she wanted her mom, no matter what. It was her mom. It didn't matter how bad the situation was. Absolutely. It was her mom. And you're not seeing that on the outside, what it's doing, what these kids are going through. It is pure trauma, really.
Wow.
And so the day I had to tell her she was never I don't want to bash the system because it's a good thing, but it's just a mess.
Sure.
And it's still worth doing. I don't want to deter anybody from not dealing with it.
Yeah.
Because it's the kids that matter. It doesn't matter. Go through it. It doesn't matter how messy it is. Just do it. But I had to tell her that she wasn't going to see her mom ever again. They didn't give her a goodbye visit because of certain circumstances, and I won't go into the details. But the judge ordered the visits to stop. And I had to tell her that she was never going to see her again. And she was also seeing some of her siblings at the time, too. And all that stopped right then and there. They didn't allow her to say goodbye. So she was traumatized. For a good hour, she just sat in bed and bawled her eyes out because that was it for her. Like, right, just like that. And I was the one adopting her, and I had to give her the news.
Wow.
So how we got through that, I just sat there and held her for about an hour and told her that, listen, you're going to turn 18 one day, and it's going to be in a few short years, really. You're almost 10. And you can go find your mom if you want to find your mom. This isn't the end. Like, with everything out there, I told her, I will never keep you from trying to find your mom. If you want to go find her, and whatever you want to do, if you want to go look for your family, when you're 18, you're going to have the ability to do that.
Wow.
And that seemed to be all she needed to hear. And she started calming down and realized this wasn't the end, of that, and that I was giving her permission to do that one day. And it just seemed like, and we kept it very open, and I've always told her that, that she still can. But now she's to the point where now she's kind of turned and doesn't want to. And so who knows how that'll change, Right. So the point is, it's just, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And when you bring in an older kid, they know what they've been through. It's not a baby. So she had 9 full years of a certain lifestyle that we basically had to bring her in and fix everything, like teach her everything. And it was a lot. It was a lot, but God was good. And I just had to there were times I had to keep reminding myself, like, God led us here. This was his doing. And the other thing I learned was when you're serving God, it's not always easy. It doesn't mean it's not going to be messy. Sometimes we think that you're going to be blessed for doing that. You're going to receive a blessing. Well, yeah, I am one day, but that's not why I'm doing it.
Right.
I'm really doing it because the Lord's already blessed me. I think we talked about that before. And you're not doing it to receive a blessing. You're just doing it because.
Yeah. And it made me
too.
Yes.
Yeah. It made me think of that Bible study where we were talking about cling and how you cling your flesh in the Bible. The story of Ruth and Naomi is, I don't remember the word they use there, but it's talking about how Ruth clung to Naomi, and it's such a strong word. It means like your flesh clings to your bones. And like that's what the Father wants from us. And so, yes, he might call us to something to where we have to be in a position where we just cling to him.
Definitely had to do that.
And that's beautiful. I love that we've talked about 3, basically even 4 different types of adoptions. So we've got the Baptist Children's Home, which is, what is that one called?
Homes of Compassion.
Homes of Compassion. And then you actually went through the foster system and fully adopted. And then we had an international adoption. And then an actual adoption here from someone
Private.
that you knew, a private adoption. Did you ever see the money from that international adoption that you paid? Wow.
Obedience.
Yes. And you wouldn't change any of that journey because you
No, I learned more in that 5 years than any of the years leading up to it spiritually. And then then Ava came out of that, and she changed my life again.
I think it's beautiful too that you both are talking about how you've changed and what you learned. And it's not just the child that you adopted and what they learned or what they changed. It was a learning through you too also.
A lot of learning.
That's beautiful. There's so many different aspects that we could go down here on this road to adoption. And I just think I wanted to bring awareness to it. So I really appreciate you ladies speaking from your heart. I think it was absolutely beautiful. And just to bring awareness to you in the Girl Talk community here, if you have questions, Nikki and Jamie are both very open and excited to talk about this conversation. So feel free to reach out, even if it's a Facebook message or anything. I know they would answer any questions you have, but we just wanted to paint the picture, give you a little bit more information. And I know Nikki was saying in our last podcast about how many children right now are on that Indiana page right now that are looking to be adopted, and the numbers of those children that hit 18 and then that's it. They don't have an opportunity to know a mother or a father and how difficult that is. So I just wanted to bring up Ephesians 1:5. That verse kept coming to mind as I was praying over this podcast this morning, and it talks about he predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ. And what a powerful message that we have the opportunity to share to these children that on earth, maybe they don't have a father at the moment, or they don't see a mother at the moment, but we do have a heavenly Father, and what a beautiful opportunity we have to introduce that to them.
Amen.
So I think that's where I'm going to end it. Anybody else want to say anything?
No, thank you.
No, that was great.
Well, girlfriends, we'll catch you on the next time. Hey, friends. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Girl Talk podcast, where women encourage women. Come join us also on Instagram and Facebook, where we encourage women to live an intentional, powerful, positive, and spirit-filled life.